So let's get going. Welcome everyone to this latest Business Gateway panel webinar. This week we are really taking part in what's going on the whole of this month, which is Scottish Startup Month, which is a month-long campaign to champion Scotland's entrepreneurial spirit and inspire the next generation of business owners to take their first steps. Business Gateway has a whole range of free tools, advice and support to help with that. So as part of Scottish Startup Month, we've organised today's panel webinar, a panel discussion with 3 business owners who have navigated the highs and lows of starting up and running a business. And really, this webinar is designed to inspire anyone thinking about starting up to take the first step. I'm going to cover some of the housekeeping first before we bring in our panel. The session is going to be recorded and it will be made available afterwards for folks who couldn't make it. Everyone's placed on mute to avoid background noise. You can submit questions through the portal. We will try and get to as many of those as we can. And if there's anything that's not covered during the discussion that you're interested to know more about, there'll be a follow-up email and you can contact Business Gateway directly. There will be a welcome feedback and a URL and code will be given in the chat box at the end. So without further ado, let's get our panel to introduce themselves, who they are and what they do. Poonam, can I come to you first?
Yes, I am Poonam Gupta. I started my business in 2003 in Scotland. I am the CEO of and founder of PG Paper Company Limited. My company deals in multiple type of paper products across 60 countries, headquartered in Greenock in Scotland.
Brilliant. Poonam, thank you. Coinneach, I'll come to you next.
Hello everybody, my name is Coinneach MacLeod, though some of you might know me as the Hebridean Baker. I'm from the Isle of Lewis and today I run a business that combines my love of baking, storytelling and Gaelic culture. And what started as just simply sharing recipes online has grown into an international brand of best-selling cookbooks, a BBC TV series, international tours, and a new venture, I guess, we're developing on the west coast of Scotland.
Fantastic. Thanks, Coinneach. Gemma, last but not least.
Definitely not least. Hi, so I'm Gemma. I run a business called Gutsy Health and we make a series of products called Gut Wealth. So we started with a flagship product, a liquid supplement to help people improve their digestive wellness, improve their bowel regularity. So I spend a lot of my time talking about bums, tums, loos, poos, and most importantly, guts. But we've been trading for around 3 years now. And last year I won a Scottish Edge Pathways Award, which was for the top female entrepreneur in the competition. And so that's a little summary. And yeah, looking forward to hearing everyone's questions today.
Brilliant. Thank you all. And I think if folks listening will understand, we have 3 very different and very diverse businesses. So this is going to be interesting to get the kind of different perspectives from you all about your businesses, your journey, where you've been, what you've been up to. So let's get into that now. And the kind of first thing I wanted to explore is how you would describe the experience of running a business over the past few years, what the standout highs, toughest challenges might have been, and importantly, what inspired you to get started. So, Gemma, I'm going to come to you first on that one.
Okay, so starting with what inspired me to get started is during the pandemic. So I'd had IBS, so irritable bowel syndrome, for about 10 years. And had lots of advice from doctors. I'd had cameras in places that we don't want to talk about. And I really wanted to find a solution for myself because I just didn't want to carry on living that way. So I went to the University of Michigan during the pandemic. So their content was available online. And I started learning about the power of biotics, which are essentially beneficial bacteria. And I was having all these light bulb moments and started to realize that I could get my own gut health back on track, for lack of a different word. And through that process, I realized that I was talking to industry experts. I was understanding about products that were available here in the UK and realized that products that were available in other countries just weren't available here for a myriad of reasons. And I just had it in me to just determine that I thought I could do better for people in the UK, but also to help people like me who were suffering in silence silence with that pain and shame of gut ill health. And then with a little bit of blind optimism and a little bit of faith, and also just feeling like I could solve this problem and help other people, I decided to start my own business. So that's kind of the summary. And then in terms of like the last 3 years, so you've mentioned the last few years you wanted us to talk about. So I'm very much in startup mode. I'm now starting to get into scale up mode. So startup mode was lots of lessons learned, lots of mistakes, some bigger than others, lots of, I wouldn't say like sleepless nights, but frustrations at times, but as well as lots of amazing moments when your customer tells you that you've changed their life or improved something for them. It gets you through those like tougher days when you're figuring things out, when pallets go missing or the product's in the wrong place or your packaging hasn't worked. So it is a lot of like highs and lows and a bit of a roller coaster, I think, for most businesses in the first few years, especially you have like doubts, am I doing the right thing? And like, but yeah, so that's like my reality, but there's also like some amazing wins. So not just the wins that people publicly might see, it's the wins of when you figure out how to do something that's been bothering you for like weeks or months, and then it works and you're like, yes, because you learn I've learned so much more in the 3 years of doing this than the 10 years of my corporate life before. So yeah, I'll let somebody else answer because I could talk all day.
No, that's good. That's good. Coinneach, I'm going to come to you next.
I think maybe the challenge for most people who are on this call today is when you're starting a business, you're probably doing it while you have a full-time job as well. And you're often starting a business which is your passion. And this is where the kind of challenge comes in, because you want to invest a lot of time in that passion. You want to invest a lot of kind of your experience and exposure in that passion. And what often is lost is the business side of your head, and your real job is often lost, because you'll get somebody saying, look, it'll be great exposure for if you just come with your product or your brand here. And suddenly you're doing a lot of things for free. You're giving away a lot for free. So I think the first challenge is finding your worth, finding your position, particularly if you are a creative. Your business is more on the creative side. And it's a big hurdle to get over. It's trying to understand where your value is. And I think once you do that, then the journey is much easier after that.
Yeah, no, really useful insights. Thanks for that. Poonam, what about yourself?
Well, I moved to Scotland in 2002, having chose to get married here in Scotland, and I couldn't find a job. So I started playing with various ideas of importing stuff from other countries and selling in the UK. Didn't quite work out for me, obviously because of lack of capital as well. And I couldn't find myself a decent job despite having a double degree, actually. So at that time, people were talking about waste recycling, and I started doing some research. And my research kind of said to me that there was a case of exporting from Europe, the UK, and USA to other countries like Indian subcontinent, China. And I started sending a lot of emails, making cold calls. But it took me the first 10 months was pure research and lots of calling. People were kind of keen to understand what was a woman doing in this industry. Apparently, I was one of the first entrants in this industry. And then somebody told me, when somebody can't help you, ask who can. And that kind of worked out for me. And I managed to get my first deal with a manufacturer in Italy who were going to send their paper into landfill. And I ended up exporting it to India. And then it just kind of grew from there when I realized that if I'm going to be in an international business, I have to have multiple markets. And Business Gateway actually played a very important role in the beginning of my journey. Like I said, I didn't have any capital. So at that time, there used to be a startup grant. I got £1,000 grant, which really helped me, and got a business plan together. And because I managed to achieve very quickly what was written in my business plan, I started getting more and more support from Business Gateway and then Scottish Enterprise. And that really helped propel my business in the first at least 5 years.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. You touched there on capital, and a wee grant to get going. And we've had a question there from someone in the audience. Did you have the need to, well, any of you, did any of you have the need to seek seed investment? And if you did, what would your recommendation be on which stage to ask for that, and what the main challenges might be? I mean, Gemma, you've touched there on the Edge fund, or an element of the Edge fund, Scottish Edge being, the government involved in that, Hunter Foundation's involved in that. Brilliant program, really, really good. Has helped innumerable numbers of small businesses getting off the ground.
Yeah.
What would you say in terms of that question about that seed investment? What's your thoughts on that?
So I think like every business is so different and unique that there isn't like a perfect answer to it. And I think like there's an element of every type of finance that exists has pros and cons. And I think one of the best things to do for anybody is, if you are seeking investment or seeking money at the start, is really think about the long-term future, about what you're wanting to achieve. So like, for example, in my industry, there just wouldn't have really been any seed money around, because they want to see evidence of product market fit. Whereas with a tech business, you could be building your business with no revenue for a longer period of time. So it's a tricky question to answer. But for me personally, what I decided to do is I had saved up a few £1,000s that I was going to put towards something else, and decided that was like it wasn't play money, but it was my business money of like, this is the amount of money I'm willing to like risk on this idea, so to speak. That money ultimately became more, but that was my first risk, for lack of a different word, and decided that was like a comfortable amount that I was ready to invest to be able to do certain things like the early stage testing of my product. So certain things like I have to do like gluten-free testing and certain things that needed to happen. What I would say is every founder that I know, well, that's okay. Over 90% of founders I know, is the vast majority of the time that they're thinking about, especially if they're scaling, is how are they going to finance the business?
Mm-hmm.
So if your ambition is to constantly be scaling or growing in some way, is you'll always be thinking about finance. And one of the great things is Business Gateway have loads of help out there, but also recommend joining a local founder group, because you learn so much just by talking to each other and learning from each other's mistakes.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gemma. Just to clarify, Business Gateway generally doesn't do funding. We might point in the direction of funding that perhaps a council or other partners might have, but we don't do it directly ourselves. But we do signpost to where assistance and support might be available. Tanya, what about yourself in terms of getting the business off the ground and funding, seed funding? Did you need that? Did you do that, or?
Yeah, maybe along with maybe a few folk here, I'm probably a little bit risk averse to ask for money in advance. So really, I very much was the person who got the income in through, be it for me, obviously the start was the cookbooks and the products that I have, the shortbread, etc. And when the revenue came in for that, I was able to do the next phase. So I probably have taken longer, this has been like four and a bit years to have this kind of bigger launch next year with the agritourism space. But so I've probably been a bit more risk averse and kind of considered what income I have currently to be able to then push out. But that will certainly change next year when and already I've been applying for a lot of products. Again, maybe slightly different to some, because it's more in the agritourism space, but the concept is exactly the same. If you are applying for funding, it's who you can apply for and understanding that. The justification aspect of it, often most organizations will fund a percentage. It's very rare it's 100%. It's often 60, 50. It can impact as well. Sadly, I'm over 40, well over 50. So that means, again, there are fewer opportunities once you get plus 40 as well, or the percentage is lower as well. But it is remarkable how many opportunities are out there. And for us, even as I said, in the agricultural space, we've been already supported by Scottish Government in doing that.
Okay, no, that's brilliant. I'll tell you, if you're over 50, you're either a really good advert for Grecian 2000 or you've got really good genes. Right, let's move
Hopefully
on.
the second one.
Let's move on. Thinking about day-to-day operations, what would you say are the biggest hurdles you're currently facing? And that might be staffing, or it might be resources, logistics, or something else. Poonam, can I come to you first on that one?
Well, I've been in business, especially in my paper business, for over 2 decades now. So I think I would say that the day-to-day hurdles are kind of well planned in advance. But mostly, I mean, there has been a lot of learning over past 2 decades. But I'd say mostly because we always have something on the sea to somewhere, and the day-to-day hurdles could be potentially issues to do with customs in certain countries. Something has a legislation, the geopolitical situation is very kind of changing all the time at the moment. So we have to keep our eye on things. But day to day, I would say mostly problems come with logistics. And sometimes, obviously, because we work in so many countries, some payments can be late, and cash flow is an important part of the business. So day to day, I think that if I were to say it in short, it will be logistics and finance.
Okay. Gemma, you mentioned, pallets disappearing and whatever. What about yourself from that kind of point of view of hurdles?
My answer to any question like this is the everythingness of everything. So it's never really the one thing, like it's just that you're constantly having to reprioritize and deal with things. So I really love problem solving, but you don't want to spend your whole life problem solving. I get a real thrill out of like when there's a big juicy problem to deal with. I'm not great with the little minutia problems. So in my current week just now, we've got a slight staffing issue, like minor one. Someone's like off at the moment, and so that just means that certain things aren't moving as quickly as we'd like to. And the big things I'm doing just now, so I'm raising funds for my business, so I'm seeking angel investment, and that feels like a second full-time job at the moment, and it's going really well. I feel like I'm like almost breezing through it because I've done a lot of background prep, but regardless, it's just a lot of extra work, and it's evening conversations rather than like daytime things, and follow up in the daytime and pick it up the phone and and that's all stuff that I'm loving doing it. But there's still the actual day job, which is managing the team, making sure that we've got stock in the right place, making sure that our marketing campaigns are going, etc. So for me, I could never point to one thing that's the challenge. It's the everythingness of it.
Yeah.
And as well as trying to do that, but also being on a train and like being in the car in traffic when you're trying to get to a thing and you need to be online, and like that's the stuff.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, if anyone hears that and they don't like the idea of that, I've designed my business that way. Like, the good thing about having your business is you can design it the way you want. I'm currently in like a real phase of growth at the moment, so I'm trying to do I keep talking about I'm in a horse race and I've got 7 horses and I'm the only jockey and I keep jumping between them, and that's what I want to be doing to do the scale of growth that I've got. Whereas you could ask me that question 6 months ago and I would have just had a different answer. But I'm building a lot of things just now, so I would never want to put somebody off that they feel that they've got to be in a 7 horse race and be the only jockey. That's how I'm designing things just now.
Okay, no, that's helpful. It's interesting that Gemma mentioned there she's seeking angel investment. She did comment earlier that the image on screen, she seems to have a halo.
Got a little halo hat.
I did suggest that Simon Templar, but most of the folk on the call had no idea who I was talking about, and probably most of the folk who are delegates to this panel webinar have no idea who I'm talking about, and I was rather disappointed, but never mind. Coinneach, what about yourself in terms of those day-to-day challenges, those hurdles? I mean, time management sounds like you probably have some issues because you seem to be doing an awful lot of different things.
Well, I think that's one thing. I mean, when I've spoken to a lot of business startups previously, what I always ask them to do is put themselves front and center of it. People buy from people. I don't want to get all Barbra Streisand, but people need people. So from that, what do you do if you create that where you are the face of your brand? The challenge is, as Gemma was talking about, there is a finite moment when can you be the person that does everything? And unfortunately, in my case, I can't have somebody else be the Hebridean baker because
Yep.
a bit like the
You're it.
Highlander, there can only be one. So from that, what I encourage at the start may at a certain point be one of your challenges.
Yeah.
I genuinely feel, as I said, that visually being the face of your brand is such a valuable tool. But there is a moment where that becomes the challenge. So that is probably one of the key aspects for people to consider. The second one is geography. We've had to make quite a big decision. No, I was based on the Isle of Lewis, so obviously a big part of my brand, being the Hebridean Baker, is being based in the Outer Hebrides. But the consideration of because of logistics of travel, ferry, etc., made it very difficult. I know a lot of people on the call probably are in more rural areas. And so we've made the decision to move to Oban, to start our next part of our business in Oban, which luckily is the gateway to the Hebrides. But those kind of decisions of where your business will be, there is the positives of being somewhere rural and getting the uniqueness of that, but there will be, of course, some logistical challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, get that. And just kind of expanding that on that a wee bit with the three of you. The question we've got there, and it's to do with logistics to some extent. The issue of finding suitable premises for your businesses. How much of a challenge was that? Gemma's nodding. I'm going to come to you first, Gemma.
So for me, my business is mostly e-commerce. So actually our head office is our office is my home office, so to speak. But I now work in a co-working space. So there's a few things to do with that maybe aren't exactly the question that's been asked, but around premises. So in my first year of trading in the business, I was sat at home working away at my office, hoping the longer I sat at my desk, something would happen, which logically doesn't necessarily make sense. So what I've done for my own mental health is find a co-working space that I come to 4 or 5 days a week, depending on what I'm doing. So that isn't like a full premises conversation. It's also about me as a founder. I need to put my health first and my home not be just work. So that's one thing. But the second thing is in the 3 years I've been trading, I've used 3 different fulfillment companies. So it's about finding the right fit of your supplier and the premises as well. It's not quite the question that was being asked, but and we're now looking at getting a premises in Edinburgh to do our fulfillment from. So that's the phase of growth that we're in. And so one of the things that I've really learned is if they're not the right fit, you just need to move quickly and adapt and make that decision. And so because we're moving and adapting and improving the business and growing the business all the time, I've made a few mistakes in terms of premises, in terms of even the logistics partners that we've used, but I've just been quick to make that decision and get out of that scenario and move on to the next one.
Okay. Poonam, you'd said earlier that you've set up in Greenock. In terms of premises, how easy was it to find premises there?
I'd like to, so just like Gemma, I actually ran my business from a home for first 12 years.
Right.
And I think there is a piece of advice that I'd like to give here, if I may. Sometimes people, when they have an idea or they're looking to start a business, they think, oh, I need a very fancy office. Well, you don't. I used to conduct a lot of my meetings in public places. We used to have a local hotel. I remember Tontine. I used to just ask people to come there and meet me for a coffee. And very soon, a couple of years into my business, I had my first child and I had a lot of travel to do. So I realized that to be a successful mom entrepreneur and to be able to kind of look after my children while running my business. I'm so sorry. I think my phone's going crazy. I hope there hasn't been any interference. I chose to work from home. And what worked for me, I applied to the council, even when I had to hire a couple of people. I applied to a council and they gave us very kindly a particular permission, which still allowed me to have a couple of people come to my home office and work with me. It was only when the team started expanding and we realized that that this is not fair anymore, and before we get a notice or something from the council, perhaps we should move out. At that time, we started looking for office premises, but it wasn't hard at all. We went to our local council. They were very helpful. They helped us identify the space, and we've been there since, I think, past 10 years. And I'd also like to mention here, there are lots of startup hubs all around the country now. And Gemma has mentioned co-working spaces, which work excellently for startups.
Yeah.
It is not all that difficult actually to find a suitable premises.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. Coinneach, what about yourself? You mentioned, I think, a cabin earlier.
Well, but probably what I would say about this is the consideration of if you are working from home, which I absolutely encourage as well. I think many of us will have been in our previous lives in a kind of office environment, and I think the contrast of that is one of the things that encourages many entrepreneurs to start, because they can have that kind of flexibility. But one of the considerations, if you do have a product, is, are you using your home from a perspective of marketing, of brand, of photography, etc., etc. So there may need to be a space where you can actually promote your product, or certainly create the photography and marketing for that. So something to keep in mind. It might be relatively straightforward to work from home. It needs a chair, it needs a table, it needs a computer, but it's just the other considerations of what your product needs might be one of the challenges.
Right. Okay. Really helpful. Okay, let's move on. In terms of customers, have you noticed a shift in what your customers want or expect since you first started? And how have you adapted or innovated your business to meet those evolving needs? Coinneach, I'm going to come to you first on that one.
Yeah, well, I'd love to say I had a wonderful strategy from day one, but I didn't mean any of this to happen. So I'm kind of catching up with myself a little bit, because to start with a product like a book is often one of the last things you do rather than one of the first things you do. And I think I learned very quickly then the understanding of, so my previous career, I predominantly worked in commercial, but I worked in sport. One of my first roles was commercial manager of Celtic Football Club, and I learned a lot there about making products aspirational. And that is to do with price points. And when you have a product which, I mean, £26, which is a normal cookbook price, doesn't seem that premium or price point as such. But if you don't have anything above or below that, then once I can only produce one cookbook a year. So I mean, it's a terrible business model if I can only sell one product to a person per year.
Yeah.
So just trying to understand what products I could have that have lower price points, so things that people can just pick up and go, oh yeah, £4, I'll just grab that from the shelf. And that's where my range of Hebridean Baker shortbread came in.
Right.
And again, with that, some people will grab the whiskey, some people will grab the marmalade, some will wait for the limited edition Christmas cookie, that kind of thing. And then the consideration was then, what is the opportunity above the £26, for the ones who are wanting something a bit more exclusive, or the opportunity to come and spend time with the brand, which is the Hebridean Baker. So I think that's probably one of the scaling things, is often people will start with a product, but then it's scaling it up and down as well, I think was probably the thing that I've learned the most.
Okay, brilliant. I'm intrigued that it sounded like the whiskey was below the £26 mark. I'm going to have to
Whiskey
investigate
shortbread.
this.
Whiskey shortbread.
To clarify. Right, okay. No, brilliant. Okay, doke. Poonam, what about yourself in terms of this issue of, you've talked about it being an international business, customers in lots of different places. Do they want or expect different things? Is there a shift?
So in my particular industry, paper industry, there has been a lot of shift in the industry itself. So as you know, that there's more and more talk about packaging, replacing plastic packaging with more products which are kind of environmentally friendly. And I think that is where our focus shifted rapidly in last 7 years. There is no doubt that the customer is way more aware There's talks of net zero. The customers themselves want to meet net zero. Oh my goodness, I'm missing the word. They have their net zero budgets or goals that they want to achieve, and we have to support them with that. So one of the reasons my business has been successful is rapidly adapting to those customers' need, and not just adapting but educating. Sometimes the customer is stuck, change is one of the hardest things. And the only way we can carry our customers with us is we can keep them aware, educated, and tell them where the next bit of opportunities will come from. And thankfully, PG over the years has managed to retain 99% of its customer base. And the reason is communication, transparency. Above all, I would also say, because we work in 60 countries, we have to also learn how the customers communicate in that country, and culture becomes a very important aspect. And that kind of creates another dynamic, which is rather interesting, and something that, we teach our team in all departments, because somebody has to deal with them at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to say that on that.
No, that's great. Gemma, you're perhaps a little too early in your journey for customers to be shifting their expectations. Maybe not. What's your perspective?
Yeah, so we've been trading for 3 years. So we've really spent the first 3 years trying to get to know who our customers are and what matters to them. They definitely, we've got lots of different ways of gathering feedback from our customers. So we've currently got about 900 reviews on our website, which is quite unusual for an e-commerce business, but we really hammer how important and helpful it is that we get information from them. In terms of their expectations, we have launched a third product, which is called Water Wealth, which is a little bit of a different product for us. So it's an electrolyte product, so it helps with energy rather than helping specifically with gut health. And what that has meant is they're now asking oh, should I be stopping taking this product and moving over? So there's been a bit of a re-education around, well, no, you can take them together, or you can just continue on with your existing product. So their expectations haven't changed. But what I would say is I've set a really, really high standard of good customer service with my customers. And that's one of the challenges I have about when we're scaling the business, is how are we going to maintain that? Because they essentially have a direct line to me at the moment. And so that's good. I get to hear, about problems. I can help create solutions very quickly. If things have gone missing in the post, or something happens, or they've got a question or feedback. But what's going to be challenging for my transition as we scale is how do we make sure that the standard of customer service is still fantastic, but at scaled pace, basically. Yeah.
Okay. We kind of touched on this a wee bit earlier on, but I want to expand on it a wee bit more in terms of the support that's available out there for businesses. Do you feel, and I'm going to come to Gemma, you first on this one, do you feel there's enough support out there?
I'll always say that there could always be more money in the ecosystem that goes direct to founders. Especially I was 37, 38 when I started my business. So I already had, some life experience and some money in the bank, etc. And was taking a risk by leaving a corporate life, so to speak. And I knew I could probably always go back to that. What I think is is for younger people, they maybe just don't have that access to capital right at the start. And there's loads of programs out there. There's loads of accelerators, places to work, communities. There's programs that are specific for industry. What I would say though is it's very fragmented. So every year, Scottish Enterprise bring out a wonderful document. Sometimes it's twice a year, and it says, "Yay, great! There's 300 agencies that help support businesses," which sounds amazing. You're like, "Wow, that'll be so great! There's 300 places that can help me." But as a founder, it can be quite challenging to then navigate by location, by industry, by stage of business. And I don't think there's a real perfect solution to solving that, to be honest. And every organization has a clear mandate and a clear deliverable that they want to do. So there's loads of help out there, but it can be a little frustrating and for founders to then navigate and find that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there is a solution to that. But I do think that if there's a problem that somebody has as a founder, there's absolutely an agency or a mentor or somebody that will be able to help you in Scotland. There's nothing that I've had a problem with that I haven't been able to find somebody who's done it before, who's, you know, bought the t-shirt and like can help solve that problem for me. But it is a little bit scary, like going out there and putting yourself out there and saying like, I don't know how to do this. It seems everybody else is doing it fine. But yeah, in terms of the help that's helped me, so Business Gateway has been fantastic, helped me set up my website when I first started, search engine optimization, digital, essentially like lots of digital support to give me the confidence to just go for it. I also got an export grant right at the start. It was the first, but sorry, not right at the start, about 2 years in, because I was ready to start exporting into Ireland. So that helped me, like, you know, test that with a little bit less risk associated with it for me. And like, but I would say that like I've had so much help, but what I would say is I'm not scared to ask for it. It's one of those things is like, don't be sitting at home on your own, like thinking like, I just can't do this. Like I did that for the first year and it was a bit quite lonely. Just reach out and ask for help because you will find it. It just might not be like immediate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Poonam, you I think spoke earlier, you'd had support from Business Gateway and Scottish Enterprise. What do you feel about the business support environment? Is there enough support out there, or what do you see as any issues with that?
Like Gemma said, there can always be more which can be done, and we can touch upon that very quickly. But I can certainly say in my startup times, even today, you know, when we are growing, and we have been growing for past 2 decades, except certain challenges with when COVID and all came. Initially, what I found very helpful was there used to be short-term courses, both conducted by Business Gateway and Scottish Enterprise, and I remember two of them really helped me, one in finance, understanding international finance, and the other one was in logistics. And they were literally half-day courses. So, you know, I could actually go and do my course in Glasgow and understand a little bit more intricacies. Of course, more came with experience. But I also got mentorship both from Scottish Enterprise and Business Gateway. Again, one thing that helped me rapidly expand my business in first few years with my travels, my exhibitions, I think it was Scottish Enterprise. They used to cover half the cost of travel. So when, you know, money is tight, it kind of really helped me not to think that it was going to cost me so much money to go out there and put my business out there. And those participation really helped grow the business. Beyond that, even today, you know, when we are working and opening a new market, Scottish Enterprise comes in quite handy in terms of providing us the vital research. I would say Scottish Enterprise, SDI, and even DBT, providing us the research that we might require to find our customers who we then go out and meet. And of course, like Coinneach, I made a Coinneach, no, sorry, said yes, said earlier on, my business is also people to people. We sell to people. So it's important to be customer facing and to be able to go out there and get certain expenses covered, or when we are completely rehauling our ERP system, which is again important as we kind of go, you are a certain type of business based on certain systems. When you are £5 million company, then you become 10, then 20, then 40, then 60, and each and every growth phase requires you to rehaul your systems to basically work with the growth that you are going to get, and even getting funding or support in terms of finding the right vendors to do our IT, get that IT support has been extremely helpful. So I mean, I do really rate very highly this support which comes from various agencies, and beyond that also private organizations, which also go towards mentoring. I think first 5 years I had to learn a lot of things on my own. That was also due to lack of confidence. But today I feel there's so much more out there in terms of networks, help, asking the right questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anything you want to add to that, Coinneach?
All I would say is, again, what Gemma said about being proactive. I think, unfortunately, I've been the complete opposite, just assuming I have to do everything myself, not only from a financial perspective, but even just now, like with the new business is considering price pointing and benchmarking. It's a really hard thing to do to position yourself in the market correctly. And again, for those of you who are in the food and drink space, I have become more proactive in the past couple of months. I'm just about to start a course with Scotland Food and Drink about starting a new business. For those in the agritourism space, now that it could be farm stays, farm activities, etc. The relatively new agritourism organisation, Agritourism Scotland, again a huge resource. So it's just you have to be very proactive. The amount of people I'll meet, farmers, etc., and I'll say, how did you get this? And he goes, oh, we applied for funding. And I'm like, oh, I just thought I would have had to have paid for this all myself. So again, you do need part funding for pretty much everything. No, that's unfair. Some angels might, but most are going to expect you to have a certain percentage, and that is obviously something to consider. But you've got to be super proactive. Nobody's going to knock on your door and say, "Do you want 20 quid or 20,000?" You have to go out there, and that's something that I need to get much, much better at.
Right.
Yeah.
Really useful insights on that. We've kind of touched on the kind of work that you're doing, all of you, in growing and scaling your business. Is there anything more that you want to kind of add to that? I mean, Gemma, you've said you're seeking angel investment, you're looking to scale now. Anything else you want to add to that kind of that piece of your journey?
So one of the interesting things about seeking angel investment is you don't have to be, but I've chosen to be quite public about that. And so what that means is everybody now has an opinion on my business and how I'm going to fund it and what I'm doing next. And I find that a little bit challenging, like one of the things, but I've taken probably 18 months to decide that that's the right funding opportunity for me. So the reason I've chosen that is because I want to scale at pace. I've already got product market fit. I've already evidenced that lots of people enjoy the health benefits of my product. And I want to do that much quicker it's not just at speed, but also like on a grander scale than what I can possibly do myself. And so I've discounted other funding options. But what that's also meant is I've probably spent about 12 months speaking to lots of angel groups so that it makes it much easier when I do open the round, which I did last month. But that means that like it's evenings and weekends and chatting to people and like making sure that I was doing a lot of networking that might on the surface not feel like it's driving the business forward in that moment, but it was the like longer term benefit. I think I would just also say that like with anything to do with funding is it's really get to understand how much money I answered that in the group chat as well. I just typed a message. Like really understand how much money you need. Because one of the things when I talk to other founders, and I talk to a lot of them because we're in a co-working space, they'll tell me that they want to do something. And I go, how much money do you need to do that? And they're like, oh, like until you kind of nail that bit, it's really difficult to decide what the best funding option for you is. And there's always grants that come out. There's always different options. I've in terms of money into the business that I've had of public money, so it was a £2,000 from Business Gateway, and then the Scottish Edge, which is it's a very competitive competition, but really like great experience because you really learn how to pitch your business. You learn about, you have to know your numbers, you have to know what your growth trajectory and model is going to be. But by going through all those processes, it's sort of like I kind of think of myself as like a boulder going down a hill and I'm getting smoother as I go along. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not. But one of the things is like any funding opportunity or option for your business, you have to really have processed it, not to just do the one that seems like the easiest one at the time. But also for me, I can be a little bit of a commitment phobe in certain aspects of my life. But getting into an equity investment with angels, I'm essentially married to them until we exit the business. So I don't want to describe it as like a dating type thing, but ultimately that's what happens. Like, we're going into a binding contract, and it's much easier to get out of a marriage than it is to get out of that situation. So I've really, really thought about it. And I think I would just say, for anyone who's starting out, like, the longer you can bootstrap your business, the better, because you get to know your business. You get to learn who your customers are. You get to test things. It's not always possible, but like, I've taken like a solid 2.5 years of really getting to know my customers and using my own money and revenue generated before seeking external investment, because then I'm much more confident in those conversations.
Yeah, no, good.
Yeah.
Okay. When we were talking before we got started, Poonam, you've talked about how you're growing the business and internationalizing it more. You'd mentioned that you're talking about opening up offices. So can you maybe talk a wee bit more about that from the point of view of how that's going to help you grow and scale your business?
Yes, initially for a few years, we tried to control everything from sales-wise from our headquarters in Greenock, and that meant we employed people who had language skills, who could speak multiple languages. But we often, we tried and failed in certain regions multiple times, and then we realized that perhaps we need to be closer to the customer in that market to do that real-time business. So at that point, we started kind of some happened organically, some happened that we actually strategically opened offices. So we have an office in America, which does a lot of buying and selling in the US, and the companies there like the fact that we have presence in the US. We have an office in Egypt, which helps cater to our mainly Egyptian market. Again, people kind of like to meet face to face. We have a back office in India, but that's more kind of administrative. And that is basically it helps us with the skill gap that might exist. So the younger graduates in India are perhaps more skilled in Excel and some other programs. And it helps maintain our database. They do research for us. They might do marketing. They maintain our website. So certain roles are basically operated from there. Recently, we've opened an office in Japan, and there are multiple reasons for that. One, to meet certain export legislations in certain countries. You can say we are almost future-proofing our business by opening in Japan. And again, another reason to be in Japan is the ambition to grow more into the Far Eastern market. Time zone-wise, it is much better. Cultural-wise, it's kind of similar, if not same, like South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, very similar kind of way of working. And Japan it has just like Scotland, Japan has good reputation in terms of businesses, like being seen as a Japanese business. Dubai is another one, more to do with kind of controlling and growing in the Middle Eastern countries. So I think right now we have offices in 12 countries. And sometimes we open an office and it doesn't work out for us. It's tried and tested, we would fail sometime, but we accept that. But if we don't try, then we've already failed. So we might as well try and fail. And we try to do it in a very budgeted way. So, for example, we also have somebody working for us out of Sweden. Now, he's quite happy working from home, but that gives us a presence in Sweden. And Belgium is another one. So it doesn't obviously have to be always very nice, fancy offices, because this hybrid way of working has really helped kind of controlling costs when we want to be in another country. But one of the reasons is mainly to kind of take on the regional growth and continental growth and be in the right time zone.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. I was just thinking, Gemma, about your comment there about the big rock going down the hill and you chasing it. I guess better to be chasing a big rock down the hill than trying to push a big rock up the hill.
Yeah. Oh, I was just saying I am a big rock. Like, I'm the boulder and I'm getting like smooth as I go. I was thinking as I was saying that analogy, it didn't really quite work. But yeah, it does sometimes feel at the start that you are pushing a big rock up a big hill. But like, yeah, see, when you get it up there, like, it's so satisfying. But yeah, totally.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, let's move on. we've kind of talked about the support that we might want to see and what support's there, but thinking perhaps more broadly about Scotland as a whole, what, in your view, changes would make Scotland an even better place for small and medium-sized businesses to thrive in 2025 and beyond? Coinneach, can we come to you on that one first?
I suppose mine's going to be a relatively obvious one, and I'm sure we have plenty folk here in kind of rural areas, but the recognition of making island businesses or rural businesses more practical to start. One of the big challenges at the moment for me in building, so we're building in this agritourism farms kind of house at the moment in Oban, and even just getting things delivered, I've realized you would think Oban was in. I can't even describe where England thinks Oban is, but is fascinating. So most things are costing treble, if not more, just to get delivered. So I think somebody once said we're better together. Not that I'm sure if I believe that, but if we are particularly better together, Jings, just make posts flipping the same price for the start. But sorry for that rant. But more than anything else, and interesting enough, I'm actually meeting John Swinney about this quite soon, our First Minister, I've just finished filming a BBC TV show, and I was in the Faroe Islands as part of that, because it's about food, but it's about islands. And, we're in the Faroe Islands with 11 inhabited islands, 10 connected to undersea tunnels, with international flights going from Tórshavn to New York to London to Edinburgh to Copenhagen. Stornoway has a flight to Inverness. And if you want to travel by ferry to Barra, it's going to take you 3 days. So that change of mindset and what the difference is, 1955, the Hebrides and the Faroe Islands had the same population, both at 35,000. Ours is now 23,000, and the Faroes is now 55,000. So what's happened? They've just made it more accessible to be on an island. So that's my big thing at the moment.
No, that's a brilliant insight. That's really helpful. Poonam, your thoughts? What are the changes that Scotland needs from now and beyond to make it better?
See, I think this hybrid way of working is a great opportunity. I am running a business in 60 countries from Greenock, not from London, not from Glasgow, not from Edinburgh. And I don't know if I was just trying to prove it to myself that it can be done. I'm a huge believer of regional development. And believe it or not, 75% of our talent comes from, I think it's about 10 miles radius. So there is something to be said about people getting a much balanced life, not getting stuck in traffic. Gemma going into Glasgow from Greenock for hours, and they come from Gourock and nearby areas.
Yeah.
And because of our positioning that way, we sometimes get one of the best talents available as well. We are the largest, I think, private employer in our area. And what can Scotland do better? I completely agree with connectivity. What does a business need? We need connectivity. What do we need in today's world? We need, I guess, better broadband to be able to speak to people around the world. And as long as we have two of these, I mean, when I'm in London, I leave the hotel sometimes 3 hours before to get to Heathrow. I would rather leave Kilmacombe and get to Glasgow Airport in 15 minutes and have an hour layover in London. Like, it's so much less stress, I believe. So I think if we have better connectivity, keep improving our connectivity, we do need to work on our talent pool. I'm sure you've heard this many times from many businesses, skills, skills, skills. How do we reskill our people in leadership roles, more in leadership roles because we are smaller population. And then obviously connectivity, not just in terms of infrastructure, but also kind of in terms of network availability. We still have problem in areas in Scotland where when I travel, I don't get mobile network, which creates an issue. So I think if we have a mix of that, plus I think one thing we shouldn't forget about, and Gemma touched on that earlier, is funding. for smaller businesses. Access to funding. Any business, if they are on that right path of growth, especially in the startup phase when they haven't quite proven themselves, but they might have their orders book filling, do not get funding that easily. So what can
Yeah.
we do to provide that necessary funding for these businesses to grow?
Yeah.
Okay. No, brilliant. We are, I mean, keep one eye on time here. We're getting very tight for time. So moving very quickly on, very briefly, Poonam, looking ahead, what's the one key goal you'd love to achieve for your business this year? And what steps are you taking to make it happen? Very briefly.
I'm kind of looking to do the packaging industry better this year. We are more moving, market's been very volatile. I'm looking for long-term contracts, which my team is working on very hard, which will give us some stability in our business. I think if there's the most important goal right now for my business, it is having that stability, which we haven't had almost since COVID. So
Okay,
we can again focus on growth.
brilliant. Coinneach,
It's very much about scaling for me. The agritourism farm will open next year. You can all come and visit Oban,
brilliant.
meet our Highland cows, come for dinner and all those kind of things. And so for me, it's getting the website ready, the infrastructure ready that
Yeah.
for that. But very much still kind of growing the brand. I've got my own BBC TV show coming out in November. I have another cookbook coming out next year as well. Please all follow my shenanigans on Instagram at Hebridean Baker and see all the things that we do. But it's very much staying in my lane. I know what works. I don't need to find 300 different things to do. I know there's certain things that people enjoy. It's great content. It is the cookbooks, products, and as I said, add into that, being able to visit and be part of our adventure. So that's the goal.
Brilliant. So, Gemma, very briefly, looking ahead, what's the
Yeah.
one key goal you'd love to achieve for your business?
Get into national retailers. So we're talking to 2 big national retailers at the moment.
Brilliant.
I wouldn't have been able to do that 6 months ago. I would have had a very short conversation with them, whereas it's very real conversation with them just now that's talking about commercials and that side of things. I'd love for my family or whoever to be able to go into a shop and be able to see that. Even though it's more about my customers, that would make me feel really good.
Brilliant. Okay. So we've kind of talked there about changes we want to see. Connectivity is a big thing, both physical in terms of, more flight connections from the Hebrides to all over the world, broadband, that kind of digital connectivity as well. So in the final kind of moments we've got together here, if someone was starting a business tomorrow, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them to help them succeed? Poonam.
One piece of advice is very hard. You're putting me really on the spot here. But I'd
Challenge.
say one of the most difficult thing is to take that risk. You always think in your head, I'm starting my business, it's a risk. But if you believe in that business idea of yours, take that risk, but take it in a budgeted way, I would say. And at least try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to try and fail. But like I said, for myself, if you haven't tried, you've already failed.
Brilliant. Okay, Coinneach, the one bit of advice you would give someone.
Work 23 hours a day.
No.
Yeah, that's a good.
And while you're doing that, as I said, you are your brand in most circumstances. I know
Yeah.
we've got people who have hospitality places. You are your brand. Don't hide behind the camera in that. People love engaging with other people. So in that beginning phase, make yourself the brand, and it will help people connect with you much, much quicker than just a product.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Gemma?
I would say get to know your customer as soon as you can, like whether you're building technology or whether it's a consumer product or whether you're delivering a service, get to know them as soon as you can, ask them loads of questions, find out what's important to them, find out what makes them tick and what will make them buy your thing or not, and build around that.
Okay. And the only thing I would add to that is obviously the fundamentals of running a business, the financial management, the bookkeeping, the marketing, all these kind of things. Make use of all the free stuff that we have on the Business Gateway website, the webinars that we offer, the online resources. They're there to be used. They're there. Get in amongst them. See what you can learn to help you to do that. And in terms of starting a business, we have a digital tool called Planning to Start. So make use of that. It'll help you understand what skills you've got, what areas you might need to improve on, and it will point you to resources that will help you in that. Can I just say to all three of you, that has been absolutely fantastic. I have loved today's panel webinar. You have been a fantastic panel. I've enjoyed the chat with you all. I hope our delegates out there have enjoyed it as well. And we will be back with another panel webinar later on in the year. Thank you all very much for coming along. And thank you to everyone out there that's joined us today. Take care. Look after your loved ones. Look after yourself. See you again. Cheers for now.